Or him a look me and him no drive. Or him a look me and him broke. Or him... All of those things. Yes? They use that to identify values. So if me have a man, he must this. And if me go be a man, me must this. They walk away with those values. So make sure they're hearing you talk about, reaffirm, and act in a way that confirms that when you say you value this in a man or as a man, your actions and your conversations back it up too. Yeah? So it's a duty we have with our everyday conversations or behavior because your children are watching. But then also, I did make a comment to men. Men, teach your sons to see their worth beyond their paycheck and their penis. When you talk to a man about being a man, make sure that that is not where the conversation stops, where you're showing him how to use a condom. That's not all that it is required to be a man. What emotional tools are you giving him as a father? Are you teaching him anything about patience? Are you teaching him to identify his self-worth for himself on the inside before him look out there for a woman to treat him good so him know him is a good man? Somebody commented on the post I made about my perspective on men raising sons and equated that to whether or not I could have held my previous partner. So even that kind of toxic view that a woman must hold a man need to hold himself. A man need to hold himself and don't see a woman as that receptacle, right? To receive you and receive your seed and to hold you, because when you find her, they say you land and rest, and she must then do everything to just make sure you stay there and are nested comfortably. We're adults, we're big people. The true marker of a relationship is recognizing where you meet each other for growth, development, and expansion, and where you begin to separate when you're not really walking the same direction anymore, where the alignment is no longer there, and being mature enough to say, well, boy, there's distance here, there's dissonance here, we're losing the synchronicity here. And instead of staying together to say we did hold it, we choose the thing that is wholesome. But not, I mean, it's a whole conversation to get into. But when I read the comment, I said, well, boy, see, there's another part of it, that the man is depending on the woman to hold it together. And there are a lot of women who have that challenge right now. It is all on you to hold it together. Because you're the woman. The emotional love up thing part of your thing, so you need to find a way for, yeah, because I bring home the money. So if I bring home the money, any other problem I have, I need to suck it up, I go buy one Bridget, because yeah, it might do feel part, so I must do now do something right. There are so many women in that position because men have been raised to think that doing this and that qualify as the sum total of their manhood, and it's just not true. It's just not true. So it is my humble recommendation, it is a personal reflection that I am making as a mother, just making sure that my daughter is clear on what a quality relationship between man and woman looks like. And even though her father and I are separated, she's not going to hear certain conversations on the phone between me and him. And I'm not only going to call him when it's related to something financial about his daughter. I call him for every milestone, for every bedtime, for every school drop-off, so he can say bye. She must understand the role of her father as for any other parent trying to figure out, how do I raise a child that focuses on the right things? There is no recipe book, I can't get a recipe book, but I think there's some ingredients that if you drop it in the pot, it can only help. Like a little salt, a little vanilla, yeah, a little bit of scotch. If you drop it in the pot, it can only help. I know the old recipe that for make the stew, but if you drop it in the pimento seed, it can only help. And we have to take responsibility for the role we play in defining these roles that we play as man and woman. Because the next generation is going to learn from us. So what you want them to learn? What you want them to learn? I accept. There is another conversation to happen about the quality of women that we raise and what we raise men to expect of women. But as I said, my reflection was influenced by the video I saw where the woman seemed to have accepted that if she is to pursue her education and have her child cared for, it means that I must now stand behind him, you know, and that is at risk of her life. I don't know what he will do tomorrow. Maybe he's a changed man. I don't know. I'm not going to call down death and destruction on her and on their relationship. I'm just looking at it as I do anything in life, anything I observe. What is the lesson here that I can learn to improve how I'm living and the example I am living and leaving for my daughter and any other person who, you know, is mentored by my actions. What am I learning from this so I can be better equipped to live life well and help my daughter to do the same? So no judgments. That doesn't help. We don't know people. But see if there's anything there to learn. And for me, that's where it lands. Let's teach our men to see their value outside of the ability to hold the woman and have the woman and mind the woman. And let's teach our women to see the value and worth of men beyond their ability to give money and give sex. Because truly, the human condition and relationship requires so much more than that. Have a great afternoon, guys. Thank you so much, Suzette. I can only speak to my experience in Jamaica because I haven't lived anywhere else. And I'm just going to read back what I had shared on my main page. I also shared this on Twitter this morning. Women, please teach your daughters to expect more from men than good sex and money. Men, please teach your sons to see their worth beyond their paycheck and their penis. The best way to teach them is to model the behavior in your relationships now. And the feedback I've been getting in the comments is indicative of a social understanding of where I'm coming from with this. While you will have a few kind of wayward interpretations and mischievous commentary, for the most part, people get what I'm saying. But a little clarity doesn't hurt. And I wanted to give some context to where I was when this thought came to me. I shared my thoughts yesterday after seeing the video where the young woman who was attacked by her ex-boyfriend who attempted to kill her, cutting her in the stomach. I think many of us saw her video when she was laying in bed with the bandages on, just coming out of the hospital, and describing how her ex-boyfriend attacked her because she was not returning to the relationship after breaking up with him. And at the time she was dating and I think living with another man, and that other man had actually traveled with her to the hospital. So if you watch her first video, she describes her boyfriend accompanying her to the hospital and having to get rowdy for people to realize that she needed a stretcher to be brought into the hospital to be looked at. And I saw the video yesterday, and she was just exiting counseling, and a reporter met her, it seems, on the property, the premises where she got court-ordered counseling. and was asking her, you know, is she still saying she wants to drop the charges against the ex who almost murdered her. And her response was that she does want to drop it. She doesn't want to take the case any further. She doesn't want to waste the court's time, and she needs her partner to be out. And where she is now, what needs to happen now to move forward, because she needs to focus on her education, her partner needs to be out so that he can help her with her education and help her with her child. Hi Rashale. Yes, that's exactly where I'm coming from with the post. So her partner needs to be out so he can help her with her education and help her with her child. And I spent so much of yesterday just thinking about what would compel a woman who was almost murdered by a man, who at the time of the attempted murder would have been her ex. What would compel her to insist on the charges being dropped, right? Return to the relationship with him, because now he's no longer the ex, he's her partner. And 3, coupled with that, the expectation of him helping her to complete her studies and take care of his child with her. And I thought about it and I thought about it, and I saw a lot of persons saying, you know, she needs more help, she is crazy, that's why you must stay out of man and woman business, because them gone back together. I'm glad me never said nothing about it. May I give her 3 more months. I don't know if it's 3 more months to break up with him or 3 more months to live, but I saw quite a bit of commentary on it that suggested she deserves no pity. You know, how can somebody do that to you and you get up back and defend him and, you know, enter a relationship again with him and, you know, all of that. And I thought about it and I thought about it, and I noticed 2 things. One, that she referred to him as partner, which means that the relationship was back on. 2, that part of the reason she wants him out is so she can have support to take care of her child, which is a legitimate concern, and to get his support to go back to school. And 3, in the end of the video where she said, or close to the end, that he was happy. The reporter asked, how do you think he feels knowing that you're not going to press charges? And she said, he's happy to know that I'm not pursuing the case. And that struck me. It struck me, and it kept me silent for much of the day, just thinking about what could cause that. Now, I can't make a speculation about who she is, her emotional state, her mental state, and I try not to do that, even with people who I know their mental and emotional states. I immediately start to think, well, as a woman raising a daughter, what is my duty as a mother? What is the duty of her father to make sure that she is emotionally equipped if ever she's to face a situation like that? It's one thing for us to say, boy, that couldn't be me. Mecca did me woulda do this and me woulda do that. And to declare that if we are ever put in that situation, we would act differently. That's one thing. But it's an entirely different thing to begin to process, well, how are you equipping the young girls in your life, whether it is daughter, sister, cousin, niece, goddaughter, to be emotionally prepared for those situations where a relationship is now threatening your life, yes, and whatever obligation you feel to the person doesn't override the duty of care you have to yourself and your child. And then how do you, if you're raising boy children, prepare them to deal with difficulties in their relationships that bring it to an end and the woman moves on and won't come back to you, to not seek to take her life. So fine, it's never gonna happen to you as a woman. Fine, as a man, you're never gonna do that to a woman. But if you're a parent and if you have children growing up around you and observing your behavior and hearing your conversations, what more could you do to make sure they are emotionally prepared if that should ever happen to them? As parents, we say that can't happen to my child, it can't happen to my child, you know? And no matter how protective you are as a parent, you have to accept that your children will make choices, and those choices lead to particular outcomes and consequences. So should they ever, by the sum total of their own decision making, not because you are a bad parent, but as adults they make choices, should they ever end up in a situation like that, is there anything you can start doing from now to equip them emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to deal with that in another way? I'm not even going to call it a better way, but in another way when we look at this example. There are many things that we could do. There are many things that require professional help to do correctly. But there is one thing I think there is always room for. And while it is not the only thing, I think it's an important thing. And it's to look at this thing we call toxic masculinity, which is an unhealthy, very restricted and confined way that we tell men what it means to be a man. And in the same way we are telling women through that toxic lens of what masculinity looks like, we're telling women what to expect, what to prioritize and value in men if the person is to be a real man. And that real man usually looks or sounds, if you're describing them, emotionless, because they're not supposed to cry, they're not supposed to hurt, they're not supposed to feel pain, they're not supposed to be affected by the things that affect women, like a breakup, like a disrespectful comment, like betrayals in a friendship. You know, men are to be tough. So no emotion, that's what a real man is supposed to look like. And wherever he feels challenged or ill-equipped to solve a problem, aggression is suitable. So we say, yeah, he must be tough. And when we say tough, that's really what we mean. You know, he must be outfitted with a broad back, so he can either take enough lick or give some lick when a time to defend, whether it's his home, his wife, his children, his wealth, his good name. He must tough. And in Jamaican reality, again, I can't speak for any other country and culture, but in Jamaican reality, we're actually talking about physical violence. You know, two bad word, a couple cloth and send up somebody underneath their mother, but him at least have to sound tough, right? Even if you're not going to do anything physical, you have to sound like you could have do it if you test me. So the real man has no emotion. The real man chooses aggression to solve problems. The real man is a provider. So if you're not provide for, you're not a man. That's not the same for a woman. Yes, the woman must find a provider. And so she is also toxified in the lens that she wears when she's looking for a man, because she's looking for the money. And if the money comes, it's a sign that you have a good man. And when the money doesn't come, it's a sign that you have a bad one. And you need to, you know, lace him up and make him know him workless and all of those things. So a man who can provide emotional support to you, spiritual support to you, affirms your worthiness as a woman, stands with and behind you as you pursue your own goals, is good to have. But the real man is the man who is providing for you. Now, I don't say that to say men who provide for women are toxic. That's not what I mean. I'm saying men who see as their sole and most important job in a relationship to earn is part of that toxic view of what role a man plays in the life of his child, partner, family. If that is the chief one, to go make money and carry it come. And the other part of the toxic view is around the sexualization of our boys. The earlier they start having sex, it's the more of a real man they are. They are particularly masculine and manly when older women happen to be their first sexual experience. Now, I don't know if we realize that we're talking about rape when we laugh at the fact that a 10-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy loses his virginity or has sex for the first time with a 20-year-old woman, a 30-year-old woman. We pat them on the back as they share those reflections as though it was a conquest by the boy, who really can't conquer anybody. It's abuse and it is rape. But when he gets to be a man, because when it just happens to you as a 10-year-old, 13, 14-year-old, you're shame and afraid, you know. Don't make nobody tell you nothing. No matter what the man them are telling you that them are 20 and 30. When it happens to you, you're afraid, you're shame, and you don't know what to do about it. You don't know how to talk about it, you don't know how to interpret it. You don't know if you must tell somebody or if you mustn't tell anybody. Because remember, everything around you is telling you that sex is good for the man, and the more of it you have is the more of a man you are. And the more women you have it with is the more of a man you are. And then certainly, the younger you are in comparison to your first sexual partner, again, the more of a man you are. So all those feelings of being violated as a child, or boys can't even talk about it because they're supposed to like it. You know, you share that as a big man and them say, yeah, I wish I did me, or that was me too, and I tell you, and my son have to come, and you know, it becomes something that we continue. And the boys can't talk about the trauma because remember, they're not emotional. They're not supposed to be hurt and in pain and in need of healing and broken by sex. Are you gay? How does sex break you? How does heterosexual sex hurt you? So all of those things form part of a very limited, restricted, suffocating view of what it means to be a man. And when we raise boys in that way, they become men who also raise boys in that way. They become men who raise girls to look for those things in the boys they marry or date or have children with. And so a man in the Jamaican context is always confined to those toxic views of what it means to be a man. Having no emotion, using aggression to solve your problems, being sexualized way too early, if not altogether raped, and seeing their worth and worthiness tied to how much money they can give to a woman. I say again, none of those things by themselves are terrible. If you don't wear your emotions on your sleeve as a man, I'm not telling you must know bawl for everything, because managing and regulating your emotions is healthy. You know when you need to be vulnerable, and you know when you have to just cloak up and wait to handle that another time, because crying in the boardroom is not going to get you the promotion. I get that. But melted together in a pot, that lack of emotional awareness, because we don't teach men how to know what they're feeling. Tell the truth, we not even teach women, right? But we definitely don't teach men to identify how they're feeling, to express that awareness of the feeling. So whether it's to say, I am feeling sad, I am feeling disappointed and betrayed, I am feeling hurt, I'm feeling confused. We don't even give them the language to use, should they even be aware of what they're feeling. And we certainly don't afford them the social space to express that. Nowadays, when men express their feelings, it feels very novel, you know, and I appreciate that my generation the millennials and Gen Z, I think I'm Gen X, so Gen Y after me, are open to that kind of honesty in emotions. It's not perfect. People still get ridiculed for talking about how they feel, but it's much better now than when my grandma was a child. So I'm grateful for that shift, very grateful for that shift, although we haven't made the 180 turn just yet. But when you melt all of those things together, the lack of emotion, the aggression, the tying of the man's worthiness to what he's able to provide, and the overemphasis on his sexual prowess as part of the definition of his manhood and the anchor that roots him as a man, those things toxify his view of himself and the view that women will take of men as a result. So what do you do if you are raising children and you don't want to raise a young man to believe that his only avenue for problem solving, or the best one, is aggression, to fight, and when he can't get what he wants, to physically assault, attack, and attempt to murder somebody else? You have to arm him with the emotional tools. And that's what I said in the beginning. Our children will need the emotional, mental, and spiritual tools to deal with those challenges. What do you teach a young man who is not comfortable expressing his emotions because all the boys around him tell him that them something they are girl thing, where you move like girl suffer? You arm him with the emotional, mental, and spiritual tools to deal with that. What do you do about a young man who the music sexualizes him early, the culture, the conversations on the corner, everything around him is telling him that his worth is tied to sex. His worth is tied to sex, and if you not have none, you're a man, and if you not have enough, you're a man. You have to arm him with the emotional, mental, spiritual tools to deal with that. Because not every man, young boy, old man, can figure that out on their own. And as parents, your job is really to help them decode a lot of these complexities from your experience, decoding them for yourself, and from the wisdom of your years of living that may help you to meet new problems with a wizened eye. That is your role. I remember say when my mother grew up, social media wasn't a thing. But by the time she raised teenagers into young adults, everybody had phone at them ears corner. People at the time it was the little text groups. So you could have formed, I don't remember what name, but it wasn't WhatsApp them time. It was SMS, and you could join different groups. So people from way out of west, out of east, in WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, in text groups with your teenage daughter, big man, big woman, in conversation with your children just because them have a 3310. And now parents who grew up on a 3310 are raising children who are growing up on tablets, smartphones, and the World Wide Web. So it's not that a parent must experience everything to learn how to decode the challenges for their child, but sometimes you're able to look at the new problem, the changed context, with the eyes of experience and help your child to decode that. That is really the job. That is really the job of a parent. And many of us, chat rooms, thank you Robert, that's what it is called, chat rooms. We used to have chat rooms before WhatsApp. Many parents think their role is to make sure the child does clean the room, wash the plate, learn to cook, go to school, get the A's, or make sure the child does not do. Don't leave the house after this time, don't have the boyfriend, don't take a call after X time. So you become a sort of warder in your house. You know, you put on the rules and you make sure that the rules are followed, and if the rules are followed, hard discipline is next. But are you helping your child to decode those messages that they're getting, put them into context, and apply the right kind of tools? You have to give them the tools to solve those problems as they meet them. Remember, you're not going to be there with them to help them solve every problem, and you can't prevent every crisis. So arm them with the right kinds of tools that they can use in any situation. And that's really all that post is suggesting. Just one more tool that could empower our children to make better decisions about themselves and their worthiness and that of others. So when I say women, please teach your daughters to expect more from men,